The American Dragon Bryan Danielson was almost murdered on live pay-per-view by attempted murderer and I would hope at this point convicted felon Jon Moxley. All right, it's a very serious thing. I've called the police. All right.
And you can't leave out William Uter. Can't. You
No,
can't.
well, Wheeler Yuta, accessory. Well, no, actually, Moxley was the accessory. Wheeler
Yeah,
Yuta was the
sure.
attempted murderer.
It was. Yes.
Actually, no, now there's two because Mox tried to do it anyway. Anyway, look, multiple murders attempted. Bryan Danielson lost the AEW World Championship to Moxley via a sleeper hold. This in itself caused a lot of controversy online, Trevor. First of all, what did you think about the way the match ended? One of the criticisms is a sleeper hold. That's like a BS way to finish a match. Or, it sucked the air out of the arena. What are your thoughts?
You know what? Here's how I feel about the match, about that ending. So you talk about your boy so many times, and he is one of the greatest technical wrestlers in his generation. In your generation, he's one of the greatest technical wrestlers. To what would be more fitting or humiliating than to have one of the greatest technical wrestlers to go out to a submission? It it may not have been like the best ending, but it was the ending that they needed to happen. Like everything for that, almost everything that happened with that match was almost perfect. I think it wasn't supposed to be pretty. It wasn't supposed to be a pretty match. It wasn't supposed to make you holy shit. No, it was supposed to make you want to throw up. It was supposed to make you want to be like, this happened, they did this. It was meant to make you cringe. It was not supposed to be pretty. It wasn't supposed to be the match of the decade. It was supposed to be uncomfortable. It was supposed to be dark. It was supposed to be gruesome. And it was all three of those things. You got to pay attention to what Moxley's doing. Moxley is a genius. Tony Khan and Moxley are geniuses. What they're doing right now, if they do it correctly, is going to rock AEW. Honestly, I thought it was fitting. I didn't see the problem in it, but I do know other wrestling purists, or as I like to call marks, thought something different. But I honestly thought it was a perfect way to end it.
Yeah, I think the thing with Mox is this match and the way that he ended it, right? First of all, I want to make it clear. A sleeper hold to me is as good as pinning someone to the ground 1, 2, 3 because it accomplishes the same goal. You incapacitate your opponent so they cannot get up from a 3 count. In this case, you incapacitate your opponent until they can't get up, period. So, in my view, I believe that is fine. You know also why, Trevor? Because in MMA, you see that happen all the time.
All the time. All the time.
All the
I
time.
thought it was going to be a bulldog choke, to be honest with you. But the fact that it was a sleeper.
He's a vegan. That's so sad. He loves the animals. Anyway, but no, I thought, look, as much of a fan of Bryan as I am, and as much as I'm going to genuinely miss him, and I was really sad in that moment, I spoke earlier about how like when I walked in or when I walked out, this felt different from any other AEW pay-per-view that I'd been to, and I meant it. Every other AEW pay-per-view that I'd been to live afterwards, it's almost like a little bit of like a party, like, post-game kind of thing. Like everyone's cheering, they're doing the chants, they're celebrating, people are talking to each other, they're jumping up and down, like, holy crap, that was such a great show, all that stuff, right? That's the vibe of every AEW pay-per-view I had left up until this point. That night, it was different. People weren't jovial. Some people were murmuring to each other, but the vibe was just missing. And to me, that is probably one of the best things emotionally that AEW has been able to accomplish ever. because they are the company that delivers these big moments. They are the company that deliver the satisfactory endings. And this time they broke your hearts.
Yeah.
They broke your hearts into little itty bitty pieces. And that was the intention. It not it wasn't only to take the air out of Bryan Danielson's lungs, it was to take the air out of the stadium or the arena, excuse me, and they did it. And
They wanted to tell a story. They wanted to tell a story that made you uncomfortable, and they did.
yeah. And for people who want to say, like, if it was too dark for you or whatever, that's fine. That is totally fine and valid. Like, you shouldn't watch it. But if you watched it, it was almost like watching, like, you know, the vibe you get when you watch like a horror movie, you know, that has
Mm-hmm.
like a bad ending, or not a bad, like a bad ending, but like, you know, like a really dark ending. Or if you're watching like an episode of like Black Mirror or something, that's how
Yep.
I felt. Where you're like thinking about it, you're like, oh my God, what's next? That's the beautiful part though.
Yep.
Because everyone was wondering what's next. Mox wins the belt. He takes it. He throws it in a duffel bag as if he doesn't even care about it. And he focuses his attention on Bryan. Darby's helpless to help Bryan. And they Pillmanize him with the chair.
Like I've always said, a buddy of mine, he's he's really in the hard, just like myself, and he always said, "There's beauty in darkness," and
Mm,
there is a beauty in darkness and chaos, and the way they did it, it was almost poetic. It was almost beautiful, but it it was like I said, it was meant to make you feel a certain way. It wasn't meant for you to be like, "Ooh, it was a great show." It was meant to be like, "That was kind of fucked up." And so that's exactly what the sentiment they were going for, and that's the sentiment they got. Again, if it was too much for you, like Omer said, like that's fine, don't watch it. But I'm trying to tell you, you're about to see some great shit coming.
mm.
It's gonna be uncomfortable. It's not gonna be for the faint of hearted, but it's gonna be some good stuff coming. I'm trying to tell you.